Imagine you get it done. Jeremy was one of the 2 wins that took it down in round 15.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that Players' Championship race. He is hungry. He has been running hot this season with an SCG Tour win. Also a team open just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. We look at our other matches. Ely Kassis versus Lee McLeod. Chargetron, huge fan. 4-main deck Karn the Great Creator against 4-color Urza. I'm a big fan of that too.
Yeah, if you're an Ely seat, you've got to be worried about what are effectively main deck Stony Silences.
Right. And Ollie on the play will start things off with a basic land. Now his deck plays 1 of each basic because it has 4 Golos.
Of course.
Meanwhile, Jeremy can try to shut down this fanciness with just some honest red cards. And second land in play, Temple of Silence for Ollie. And Red's going to do its thing. Fanatical Firebrand into Runaway Steamkin. We mentioned,
This is the start.
yeah, spells that cost less than 5 for Ollie. We have 4 Growth Spiral, 4 Teferi, 4 Elvish Reclaimer, and then it's Circuitous, 4 Circuitous Route, and 1 Drawn from Dreams, and that is it. Everything else is 5 or more mana.
And Ollie here has one of those Teferis to return the Runaway Steamkin to his hand, hoping to basically just build a time lock.
Yeah, draw a card, build a Time Walk, that seems great. Elvish Reclaimer was the draw actually off of Teferi, so he'll get a little bit of ramp next turn.
Hopefully he's missing green, and a lot of his lands do not come into play untapped.
Yeah, untapped green sources are hard to come by.
Ooh, Sun Petal Grove off the top with an island and a swamp in play.
Yeah, I was going to say it's green. Does he have it? No,
he
doesn't.
No.
So he'll have to wait a turn.
That's such a heartbreaker.
The mana in this deck's pretty wild. And we see the remainder of the hand. Some looks like Elvish Rejuvenator, Field of the Dead. A couple others in the middle there. Maybe Hydroid Krasis.
Hydroid Krasis is a way for him to put some distance between his life total and the number 0.
Well, that's something he's interested in here. Shock goes upstairs to grow the Steamkin. Jeremy not holding back. Deck lists are open here. So Shock's down to 16. A swing for 5 puts Ely to 11.
Note the prioritization of growing this Runaway Steamkin. He
Yeah.
knows that if he just gets to put counters on this, it's going to be worth more damage, and it will help him empty his hand sooner, which plays exactly to his plan in the matchup.
Believe there we saw one of the... We'll see another land they're drawn from Ollie, but it's going to be Elvish Rejuvenator. So Rejuvenator, Ollie going to make a choice here. He's got to stop the damage somehow. Thornwood Falls as the find. That one actually gains a life, so that plays some here. And there's Temple of Epiphany, the Scry land for Ollie. Scry's to the bottom. He's got to try to stay alive.
Yeah, a lot of what he's going to be looking for are ways to power out this Hydroid Krasis, maybe even Agent of Treachery to steal Runaway Steamkin, get a little bit of pressure off of him. 11 is not that scary of a life total.
All right, Fanatical Firebrand shoots down the blocker. And we're going to see another shock. So Ollie down to 9. Steamkin now a 4/4.
He's at a virtual 4, and that is a much scarier life total.
We'll actually make that 10. There was the life point gained off Thornwood Falls.
Oh, right.
So 3 red mana.
Pre-combat taking counters off Runaway Steamkin is spooky.
Yeah, it makes you think he has enough mana to really make this work. So yeah, he's going to Spectacle to light up the stage, get one of those counters back. Top 2 cards are a Mountain, and it looks like another light up the stage.
Oof, that's brutal. that's a strong hit with a Runaway Steamkin where you just want to keep playing spells.
So it looks like actually correction on the life total is going to be at 7.
Is that 2 lightning strikes?
If it is, I think we're going to the next game. Spends the mana. Casts Viashino Pyromancer. Deals 2, Ely to 5.
Attack for 4.
Yeah, that's just going to do it.
Oh, it's just, yeah, I'm not going to sit here for this. You got it.
Game 1 goes to Bertarioni, and this to me just shows some concern in the matchup. Ollie was on the play. I don't think Jeremy's hand was great. It was very good, but he can go faster than that.
I think Runaway Steamkin was kind of the defining factor of that game. It got answered for a turn by a Teferi, but even that wasn't really answering it. It just kind of bought a turn, and then he lost that turn again when he had to play a tap Temple Garden, because then he didn't get to use that turn for anything substantial.
So, game 1 of the top 8. Not surprising, that was the first one to finish. Now, in the SCG Tour coming up in Season 2 in just a couple of months, we have SCG Regionals. It's the regional championships. They happen in Modern. They're the weekend of October 19th. Now, these are tournaments happening all around the country that are still a part of the SCG Tour. And you can compete in them too. First of all, the first 200 players at each of these tournaments are guaranteed an exclusive playmat and tokens just for participating in the event. You can see the newest addition to our token series is Colin Roundtree, our Season 1 Invitational. He chose a Servo token. You can get that. You can get this custom human token as well as the playmat that it's featured on by going to the regional championships. You see 12 locations around the country here of stores where you can find it. You can register at these stores. And what's on the line? You mentioned it's part of the SCG Tour. We have, well, first of all, 8 invitations to SCG Con Winter on the line for anyone making the top 8. On top of that, we have cash prizes being paid out all the way to the top 32, as well as SCG points to every person in attendance, which can help you earn buys and qualifications on the SCG Tour.
Yeah, there's a point where if you've been able to do well in some other events, maybe you haven't quite broken through yet, a top 16, those 6 points, that's halfway there.
All right. StarCityGames.com/regionals. You can find a location near you and register for the event. Jeremy's teammate Collins Mullen also picking up a win just a couple minutes ago.
That's the type of matchup that Teamer generally wants to play against, but pre-board things can be a little shaky if you draw too much of your creature removal, for example. But if you can find a bunch of soft permission, surgical extraction, and so on in the post-board games, it's going to be better for the Delver strategy.
Modern match. Your Mox Opal Mirror there. Still in game 1. And Ollie's going to give this one another shake. He's on the play. Looking at his sideboard, how can he address this matchup?
So he's dedicated a lot of slots to customizing his deck against some of the previously more popular decks of the format. These are your Scape Shifts, your Vampire decks, etc. We could end up seeing something like Deputy of Detention coming in to tag creatures. Legion's End is another option to more permanently deal with Runaway Steamkin. Time Wipe and Massacre Girl are also cards that can deal with the creature half of Bertarioni's deck, but there isn't very much that's going to successfully answer just lightning strikes going upstairs.
Yeah, I was looking for some cards like, some of the red hate cards out of M20, out of the sideboard, and I'm not seeing them here.
No, there's no Cerulean Drake or Devout Decree, anything like that.
Yeah, again, the sideboard, just like the main deck, the sideboard is mostly cards that cost 5 or more mana.
Yeah, and this is just to make sure whenever you are ramping into your big card and you dedicate so many cards to ramping, you don't end up in a spot where you've ramped into something that isn't good in the matchup. He wants to make sure that his payoff cards are going to be good enough, and it's kind of biting him in this match.
Now, on Jeremy's side, do you go toward Blood Sun? Ollie, it's interesting, right? He's a deck that plays Field of the Dead, but he is not Scape Shift.
Right. So this is the spot where it's going to be tough and come down to what Bertarioni wants to be doing in the matchup. In his position, I'm not sure that I would be looking to change too much of what I'm doing. Maybe customize some of my threats a little bit. Something like Tybalt, Rakish Instigator can affect Hydeward cases in such a way that that could be a good thing to be doing. But other than that, it feels like your game one plan is just going to be good enough a high percentage of the time.
Temple of Epiphany to start here for Ollie. Plenty of lands in hand. And maybe a sigh of relief there. Doesn't see a 1-drop, so he'll get to develop.
That is a huge relief for Ollie. Getting a little bit of breathing room from something like a Fanatical Firebrand. You can see an Elvish Rejuvenator hiding out in his hand as well.
Yeah, no Firebrand for Bertarioni, but he does have that Runaway Steamkin, which was so important last game. Rejuvenator top 5. Is it gonna miss? 3, 4, and it misses.
Oh my god!
He's got to show Ely. Man, which land should I take?
Which one do you think? You know what? Actually, let's give him a chance. I'll put him on the bottom.
A swing and a miss for Ollie. 5 cards.
Good grief! And you know another point there that's so awkward is he has all these lands in his hand and now just has 5 spells on the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, everything about that going wrong. Now, some good news. Teammate Ely did just win Game 1 over Lee McLeod.
Oh, that's got to feel good.
But Bertarioni going to take advantage of the situation. So it's Shock upstairs. That allows Spectacle for this light up the stage. It shows a Chandra and a Gitu Lava Runner. Might see him cast the Lava Runner here. He just put 2 instants or sorceries into the graveyard.
Right. It also grows the Runaway Steamkin to being 4 power, which will then allow 3 counters come off. Maybe you cast a removal spell to get this Rejuvenator out of the way, and it ends up being more damage to just cast it all pre-combat.
Looks like Jeremy's reaching for a different card. I'm a bit surprised on that. Yeah, he actually wants to shock the blocker away instead. So looks like he's just going to continue the turn. So he makes 3 red mana. Now the blocker's gone.
When it comes to Runaway Steamkin, the turn's never really over.
All right, as he light up the stage again. Another land and a Viashino Pyromancer.
Oof.
A lot of stuff to cast here.
Oh, yeah, and depending on what's in his hand, if there's another 1-drop, you likely cast the Lava Runner, but if not, you just want to be mana efficient and cast Pyromancer instead.
Maybe. I'm wondering if he's going to do this because the Lava Runner has haste, so this actually is more damage.
It's about the same just because of the trigger on the Pyromancer, and then you don't get to attack with the Pyromancer next turn, so it's 2 this turn and 2 next turn either way.
Swings in for 5. And Ollie takes the hit. Bunch of cards at the ready. Jeremy has his next turn mostly spoken for.
Ooh, yeah, you can play a land and then play the Chandra and attack for 6. Take the counters off. Viashino Pyromancer is going to make it 8.
Yeah, Ollie right now his best play in hand is Hydroid Krasis for 1. Which he has to shock to do. That doesn't help.
You only pay 1 life for this play instead.
That's what he'll do. Goes down to 13. Draws a card, gains a life.
And see, the nice thing here is if he gets a chance to block the Runaway Steamkin before Bertarioni uses it for mana, then the Steamkin will die if it has 2 damage on it, and then Bertarioni uses it for mana. So it is possible that this gives a window to buy Ollie some time here.
Right. Yeah, Bertarioni are going to have to figure this one out. Now, if he has a shock, none of this matters. He'll be able to cast everything. So 2 mana, going to be for the Viashino Pyromancer, the Steamkin up to a 4/4. Ollie down to 11. I think they're motioning that, yeah, if Bertarioni attacks, he might just chump block the Steamkin.
Yeah, it also might be possible that he missed that trigger since he did the Viashino Pyromancer trigger before rolling up the Runaway Steamkin. It seems like that's what they're talking about right now.
Yeah, it looks like they're asking the judge on that. It really depends on what was said as to how the judge is going to rule here. But that is the call as to whether or not the Steamkin trigger was missed.
Yeah, it's a tough spot when you're in a position like this where it's as high stakes. Every little bit of sequencing like that can count. So one of the things that Ollie could have happened to get back into this game is if it turns out the other cards in Bertarioni's hand, rather than being burn spells, are more creatures, and Ollie has the ability to cast something like Time Wipe next turn, and then can actually just reset an almost clean battlefield and then maybe find a way to deal with this Chandra. Obviously, the Chandra is going to have the ability to draw some cards in the meantime, but if he has a way to just kind of mop up what's happening and the pressure that he's under right now, his spells are going to be more powerful than Bertarioni's.
He really does need that sweeper, though. Time Wipe, you mentioned, that's in his deck. His other sweeper, his main deck sweeper, is Massacre Girl, which I don't believe we have any black mana in play yet, so that one's offline.
Right, really would be looking for that Time Wipe. It's possible if he's an untapped black source, he could play something like Yarok, which is a lifelinker. It is a 3/5 with lifelink for 5.
Have lifelink.
So, you know, we joked a little bit earlier about that being a little clunky, but a 3/5 with lifelink is pretty respectable against a red deck.
Yeah, she has trouble answering a card. That 5th point of toughness means even Lava Coil can't help it.
A lot of the 5s that are in Ollie's deck as well just happen to be 5 toughness creatures. Golos, Tireless Pilgrim, on top of being a ramp spell, just is a 3/5. So if he can just bridge the gap to 5 mana, it feels like that's kind of the turning point for him in a lot of ways. If he can just start to try and stabilize, build a battlefield from there, and just get time to start casting his spells, that's his avenue to victory.
Looks like the ruling has been that it is out of order sequencing. See if that ruling stands. So Star City Games Game Night is a promotion around the country where you can play your local store tournaments and win exclusive prizes from Star City Games. You get the creature collection, tokens, and sleeves just for playing. Right for August, that means it's going to be the 2/2 night token of the Gruff Champion. You can find the location near you at starcitygames.com/game night. The ruling is out of order sequencing, but that is a correctable ruling. Both floor judge and head judge make that ruling, and the counter will be placed on Runaway Steamkin.
Sure, makes sense.
So 3 red now in the pool for Jeremy Bertarioni. He will cast that Chandra Fire Artisan and get one of the counters back on to Runaway Steamkin.
In the words of Chandra, let's light it up.
+1. Chandra exiles the top card of the deck, so an experimental frenzy. He's not going to be able to cast that one.
I think he'll find a way to power through this incredibly trying time. See, and this Hydroid Crisis made it so that Runaway Steamkin couldn't attack. This is buying time. That's honestly what Ollie needed that card to do.
Attack traded with the Crisis. So Ollie gets to untap with 11 life here. Not doing too bad. Hand is still mostly lands, however. And just land and go for Aintrazi. It's just too much clunk.
Oh, jeez.
And top card.
Well,
Chandra Fire Artisan is light up the stage. Does not want that, so he casts Runaway Steamkin, Viashino Pyromancer.
Oh, that's going to enable the Runaway Steamkin and the light up the stage.
And that's going to be it. That's enough damage. And mono red, showing that it is too quick for this ramp deck. A 2-0 win for Bertarioni.
And that's basically how it's kind of drawn up. That's just not the deck that Ollie's deck is built to fight. And we saw exactly what happens when it doesn't get time to set up and implement its strategy.
Yeah. 2-0, which means Collins Mullen could send his team to the semifinals with a win here in Game 2 on Legacy.
Yeah, up a game right now. Just needs to get that one more match to clinch it.
Yeah, so on the Legacy table, we will go. Reanimator. Collins has managed to make a Chancellor of the Annex. However, not everything is squared away yet. Dreadlord Arcanist and 2 Delver of Secrets on the battlefield for Hunter, and both players near their starting life total.
Yeah, and we even see this Chancellor of the Annex staying back on defense.
Yeah. Well, I've seen this when I've played this deck, is that Chancellor of the Annex, it's, that reveal ability at the beginning of the game is great. It's a good, powerful creature, but a lot of times Reanimator is trying to make one creature that wins the game by itself. Gristlebrand, Tidespout Tyrant. Chancellor of the Annex oftentimes does not do that.
Correct. This is the type of effect where it can kind of just sit back as a 4/6 on the battlefield that slows Hunter down enough and makes it difficult enough for Hunter to interact that Mullen will get a chance to put another big creature onto the battlefield. And at the point when a 7/7 lifelink creature like Gristlebrand gets to start attacking, that's when there's a nail in the coffin and Nance can no longer win.
These two longtime teammates, back from when they were both starting on the SCG tour, find themselves on opposite sides here, both from North Carolina.
And it looks like a situation where Hunter cast Brainstorm
and didn't pay the extra.
Or Colin said okay. Hunter went to pay or draw the card. Colin said you're supposed to pay 1, and it's...
So Chancellor of the Annex will look at a judge ruling on this. So the issue is that it doesn't say they cost 1 more. It's not Thalia. It says when an opponent casts a spell, counter it unless they pay 1. So Hunter is allowed to pay 1 to not pay this and let his spell get countered. And because Hunter tapped an island and then reached for and touched the top card of his deck, I think it's unlikely he's going to win this ruling because it shows that, he was going to resolve this without paying.
Well, it's tough because it is a trigger that Collins does have to announce.
Okay, so that's changed, so if he has to announce it?
Correct.
All right. Well, we're going to get a judge ruling on this one then as well, see how that squares out. This was often a thing if you go back, I think the first card I remember playing against like this was Frost Titan. Had the ability that when something target it. So, and the Frost Titan had the original one that, when you target it, your spell would be countered unless you paid 2 more. And
correct.
You had some pretty brutal games which could result from that.
Yeah, that was back towards the end of sort of the wild west of PTQ days where it almost felt like trying to just maneuver your rules knowledge around what your opponents could do. Yeah,
and sometimes there was no coming back. Like, say if your opponent cast Mind Control on your Frost Titan, and if the Mind Control player just didn't have 7 mana, they didn't get the Mind Control back, it would get countered.
Yep, absolutely.
And that, I think, today would still happen. Now, if they had the 2 mana, the rules on that one have changed.
Exactly. That's where things get a little bit fuzzier, and that's why we're seeing this judge ruling down here at the table.
Yeah, the judge has ruled that the trigger is still on the stack. I believe, and we'll get here, that you mentioned the ruling is that they have to announce the Annex trigger.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is clear, this because Collins, and you see Hunter saying this, he touched his deck, that Hunter had forgotten about the ability. But if Collins didn't announce it, the game might be rewound so that Collins announces it and Hunter gets a chance to retake the decision.
Exactly. It could come down to that. It could just look like Mullen missed the trigger, and that's what Nance is trying to argue. It's really, without us having the table mic'd, it's really muddy.
Yeah, there's a few ways the judge could choose to resolve this, and it really depends on what the players said in the situation.
Correct.
Now, if you want to get a chance to see all the matches from this weekend, make sure you're following Star City Games over on our YouTube page. During the week, we'll have full coverage from this weekend on our YouTube page. And that's not all we have. We also have our Versus and Commander Versus series. That's when you watch some of the top players on the SCG Tour play testing the top decks of their formats.
Yeah, and now we have Corey Baumeister over there squaring off against Ross Merriam. The fight for all the marbles.
We have Flashback, Best of the SCG Tour, and more. You can follow us at youtube.com/StarCityGames.
Do you have a favorite Best of SCG video?
We used to show one. I liked the Leylines deck. We had Leylines in Legacy.
Yeah.
That was on there for a while. I think you can find it on the YouTube page.
There was an old one that didn't get played very much because it was earlier days of the SCG Tour, and it was someone playing Battle of Wits in Legacy, but they made it a zoo deck instead, where it just happened to have Battle of Wits as well. And Sneak and Show, turn 1 Show and Tell in an Emrakul, but Show and Tell put in the opponent's Battle of Wits.
Just loses on the spot.
And they literally died on the first turn. You see the person just kind of look down at the table and look at their hand and look down at the table and shake their head and pick the Emrakul back up.
Emrakul is no match for this enchantment.
Listen, it was a Battle of Wits, and the Sneak and Show player came unarmed.
Used to have one, I think we had a Hypergenesis player. Similar thing happened. They were playing against the All Artifacts Mud deck, and they just made a turn 1 Hypergenesis, and the Mud player dumped about 25 mana of artifacts on the board and just had the better board after Hypergenesis.
Yes, exactly. They put like a Blightsteel Colossus into play or something.
Yeah. It was like, I'd love to dump my hand. Let's see who wins.
What is your Angel of Despair targeting?
So the ruling here was that because Collins didn't announce it, it still happened. So they rewound. The trigger was on the stack. Hunter was given the opportunity to pay, which he did. And now we're resuming here with Hunter resolving a brainstorm.
And here the type of thing that Hunter's going to be looking for is just anything that can get this Chancellor off of the battlefield. So there is a main deck copy of Vapor Snag in Hunter's list. This is one way to get out from under this creature. He has another copy of Vapor Snag out of the sideboard as well. Those are the big things that he's going to be looking for to get him out of this. It's also possible, it wouldn't necessarily work this turn, but if he can find his one main deck copy of Engineered Explosives, that could destroy Animate Dead. It would take Dreadhorde Arcanist with it, but that's probably a fair trade.
Yeah, and at some point, both players are developing through this, and you're going to see an attack here. Dreadhorde Arcanist going to cast Brainstorm. Hunter does have to pay an extra mana for it. Looks like he's willing to lose a creature to this Chancellor to get an attack in.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to find a specific type of card, and you need to sacrifice other cards in order to make that happen. He's starting to realize that, you know, the noose is starting to tighten.
And he'll still get 4 damage here. You know, Chancellor can only make 1 block.
And there's a chance, there aren't any other cantrips in the graveyard. Collins might just block a Delver of Sea, or an Insect Aberration, rather, to keep cards like Reanimate better.
And looks like Collins still deciding on that one. Meantime, his teammate Lee McLeod getting 1 step closer to winning the round. He takes game 2 against Ely Kassis. So match point now on both Modern and Legacy tables. Looks like the block was on the Arcanist. Collins decides to take full 6 here to get that Arcanist off the board. He's now down to 11. Can Collins put something together? He has Unmask. It's like a pair of Lotus Petals. Maybe it's go time.
I think I might have seen a bunch of Delver of Secrets hanging out in Hunter's hand, so if he can just play all of those, that can get around a Chancellor.
Unmask from Collins. He exiles Dark Ritual to cast it. We see Force of Will, another Delver, looks like a True Name Nemesis, and
Narset?
Narset, I think, is the card hiding out there, yeah.
Okay, so a lot of the motivation here for that attack last turn is instead of answering the Chancellor of the Annex, you just try to kill Collins.
Right. I just want to attack it back. Yeah. Yeah, there's no way in hand to answer it right now, especially with something like Delver True Name as your next turn.
Exactly, and when you know you're effectively brainstorm locked and you know the top 2 cards of your deck aren't going to be good enough, you just have to find a way to do it.
But this is scary. Collins leaves all the creatures and takes the Force of Will. No, yeah.
You can just find a reanimation spell. That's probably going to be enough. There's an Iona hanging out in graveyard. That'll lock all of Nance's spells out by naming blue.
Yeah, we see Faithless Looting here from Collins. Did he find one? Yeah, Hunter going to read that Iona. That's a hard one.
And it looks like there's a reanimate in Collins' hand.
Is there a risk? I mean, you go down to... Iona costs
2.
9, right?
All of a sudden, you can't actually attack.
Yeah. A 7/7. Right, so the problem is that Collins will get the Iona, but Collins actually can't attack then, can he?
Attention players, Ultra's Graphite Shark will be heading out.
He has to decide if that's how he wants to move forward, or does he want to wait for Gristlebrand?
Or if you want to stop.
Oh, or he just has Exhume. That's fine, too.
Okay, all right, hey, that makes this a lot easier.
Graphite Shark will be heading out.
So Exhume, Dreadhorde Arcanist for Hunter, but a Iona for Collins.
Ooh, and, you know, the downside here for Nance, on top of getting all of the cards in his hand locked out, right? His way out from under these big creatures is just Vapor Snag, and these are open deck lists, which means that Collins knows.
Yeah.
This is really bad for Nance.
Does he attack? He wants to swing in for 5. I think the question is whether he attacks here or whether he just leaves Chancellor on defense and starts sending Iona next turn.
Sure. The attractive thing about attacking here is you can put it. Basically, it changes the clock over the course of the next couple of turns.
So Hunter takes it, goes to 13. Now, Collins only has 11 power in play, so he can't start forcing chump blocks just yet.
Correct. But he does want to apply some sort of pressure. He knows that Nance is brainstorm locked here, and you want to keep it that way.
And yeah, Hunter, no way out. He extends the hand, which means Lee McLeod, Collins Mullen, and Jeremy Bertarioni, they will take the match in Legacy, they took the match in Standard, and they will move on to the semifinals.
Yeah, and, you know, we've just been seeing this from this Reanimator deck and this Mono Red Aggro deck all day. Those decks have looked great. The Rakdos deck, lots of benefits from the London Mulligan and everybody trying to out-fair fight each other. Mono Red, people forgot about Mono Red, and it does well the next tournament. Tale as old as time.
So, convincing show for them. Congratulations then to Hunter, Ely, and Ollie on the top 8, but that will be the end of their tournament.
Yeah, and, you know, that's a perfectly respectable finish. This is a very strong field. Just look at the top 8. So many names.
That means Charge Tron, the hands of Lee McLeod. It's the one deck we didn't get to see, but it is still live. All right, so with that, the number 6 moves on with Mullins, McLeod, and Bertarioni. We have some other results here as well, which I believe are starting to come in. I believe we have the team of Rogers, Kulik, and Azuelos, it looks like, picking up a win.
Yep, that's what I'm getting over here.
Yeah, that is over the team of Brixa, BB, and Barrich. So for Erin, it's not going to be... She already has 1 win this season, but is still so far only going to be just 1 win and 1 top 8, I suppose.
No, I guess she'll have to settle for... Well, it depends. If we see Bertarioni make it all the way to the finals,
he could jump, right?
I believe he can jump and end up in first place.
Yeah.
But if Bertarioni loses here in the top 4 this next match, then it's going to be in second with Barrich in first place. But nobody else in the top 8. No one did anything this
matter,
weekend.
right? Because the top 3 get the invites.
Right, and I believe Dominic Harvey hit a 3-point weekend, and everyone else didn't really do anything. So they're going to put some distance between themselves and the rest of the pack fighting for those Players' Championship slots.
So Bertarioni's team is going to move on to face the team of Casey Lancaster, Evan Whitehouse, and Kane Reinhard. They were winners in the 2-7 match as well, so that's another matchup set for our top 4. I believe we still have the final match, the 1 seed, still playing, but at a point where we can't really move it over just yet.
Yeah.
So what is on the line then for our top 8? We'll take a look. As they moved Each team, by winning this match, has pocketed $600 more. That's $200 each for the team. 5 more SCG points for each player here. And with a team open, then now invites to the Invitational given to all the teams from this point out.
Yeah, everybody in the top 4 going to be getting these invites to the Invitational at SCGCon Winter.
All right, next one is going to be a big one. So 1 match out, but we will be back. When we are, it's going to be Brian and Craig. They're going to have the semifinals. We hope you stay tuned. We're pretty excited about